Others?
Oh, I had one question actually for Marcia. I'm not sure if I heard you correctly. You were describing some line in an episode where the guy said it's Darwin. You got to choose Darwin over Einstein or something.
Oh yeah.
It's Darwin in the prison and Einstein outside or something.
So he was arguing, and a whole series of other folks.
And did you interpret that, or that was interpreted as being Darwin is scientific and Einstein is not scientific, and
Yeah.
social Darwinism, you could argue, is not scientific.
Right.
Whereas Einstein is quite scientific.
Right.
So anyway, I was.
No, I mean, I've thought about that, and it's kind of in the footnotes, how to, what is it, how to read it deconstructively as well as, connotatively and deconnotatively. That's what I'm looking at. And in the talk today, I kind of focused on the idea that, social Darwinism as being just kind of this evolutionary taken for granted worldview, whereas Einstein's imagination, basically, which is what the show kind of celebrates in the character, and that's something I didn't have time to go into. Not necessarily his scientific outcomes, but his imaginative modes of thinking, which is how Michael kind of gets them out of the prison, relies on this other thing that happens in a world you can't see. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
I did have trouble with that as I was writing it and thinking about it as well.
Anyway, there's an amazing contradiction.
Absolutely.
In there that goes to the heart of our world today, where social Darwinism, which is unscientific, is regarded as being real, and Einstein, is denied by many people. Not Einstein, but that train of thought that is something you can't see, and yet is scientifically based, and is denied and rejected.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Can I go back to something Sheila said? I was glancing at my chapter to remember, and I've said this before. There is a very fascinating. There's two articles written by Mark Massa at Fordham, as well as another American religion historian named James Fisher, in which they're doing this wonderful debate about whether Catholicism, as it's portrayed on television, is formed by popular culture, or whether it is itself forming popular culture. And Fisher is of the opinion that the mass culture in America has been essentially very much influenced by Catholicism, even though he doesn't want to admit it. And Massa says not only does he not think that, but he doesn't want the sort of Catholicism devalued by popular culture and sort of the thin layer that gives seriousness. And so there is a conversation within American Catholic studies about those issues.
Again, one more thought. I guess we have a few minutes
Yeah.
until we go. And that goes to your paper, Leonard, and your commentary. I'm glad you finally dealt with the issue that Aaron Sortman is Jewish, and he's writing non-Jewish. There's a long history in American media, going back to the film industry and into the television industry, as we know, heavily populated by Jewish owners and creators, that their pressure was put on to de-Judaize, it's the term, where a Jewish writer would have preferred to present something that was closer to his own experience, but was forced by the powers that be to dilute that and actually turn it around. One of the more famous examples is Marty, the show Marty, the TV show, and then the movie that was written by Patty Chayefsky. He originally wrote it as a Jewish family, and then was told, no, it can't be a Jewish family, so he turned it into an Italian family. Now, today, you'd expect less of that kind of pressure. Also, of course, in the West Wing, it would have been less realistic to have, but out of the realm of possibility to have a Jewish president.
I kept asking them about, I had the opportunity to meet several of the, I was telling this story, believe it or not, last year, 10 minutes from where I live, 10 minutes, a group decided to have like a West Wing reunion. And so who was there? Several of the actors, several of the writers, one of the executive producers, can you believe this? And so I went over there, and then one of my former students had got me a ticket to the cocktail party with them. And so we went in there, and so I wish, obviously Martin Sheen wasn't there, but I kept asking them, what was the influence of Martin Sheen on the show? What did he play? Because, I mean, there's gotta be sort of a Catholic eye over the show. Even there's a moment where you may not even recognize it, but there's a moment where there's a stress in the president's life, and the family is seen going to mass and receiving post-Vatican II communion. They're receiving it in the hand. They're receiving the bread as well as the wine. It's like, oh my God, on television, you gotta be kidding me. And so I was wondering, where did they get that from? And then Sorkin apparently would go to Sheen and sort of ask him about various things, as well as going to his rabbi. He went because he infused Jewish themes in the show, as well as various other priests in Los Angeles, to get this information and be as accurate as possible. So that was really fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I just want to comment because West Wing is one of the shows that I did watch very regularly, and as a Jew, it felt very Jewish to me. I had to keep reminding myself that the characters themselves, and occasionally there would be something overt that would remind you, but the way that was sometimes constructed by the people that I talked to was, wow, you know, Catholics and Jews, they really have a lot in common. And I think that's actually true, but it was interesting that that came as part of reflection on the show, which may have had something to do with, you know, Sorkin's role and then Sheen's role and all of that. That there's kind of a very ecumenical, not in the Christian sense, but you know, very pluralistic type of Catholicism on the show, so that you could identify with that, depending on your politics and your own religious affiliation.
Right. The other famous episode that I wrote about is about capital punishment, and that one where he explores fully the Jewish perspective first, and then he does the Catholic perspective, and it ends with the Catholic president actually having his confession heard in the Oval Office by a priest, which is really quite amazing. And they bring in, what's his name? Oh, from On the Waterfront. Carl Holland, they bring him in to do the scene, and he carries, I read in several places that to make the scene more authentic for himself, he carries the rosary that he used in On the Waterfront and over that with the scene. And I think the rosary, the prayer book, he uses from the film. And so that sort of, and everyone in the crew knew that, and that sort of again infused a sort of energy into this scene. But how many times do you ever think of the president having his confession heard in the White House?
Yep, absolutely. We've got refreshments in the back. We'll reconvene at 11:15. I'd like to thank our presenters.